Today we have a special episode entitled, Don't Be the Reason You Can't Scale Your Business. I'm thrilled to bring you a conversation with our very own Scot Thomas, President and CEO of STC. Scot founded STC in his garage 12 years ago and has since navigated every aspect of sustaining and growing a business. He shares lessons learned during various seasons of leading STC, reflecting on his time in different roles, ranging from owner, operator, and manager. Ultimately, he discovered his passion for entrepreneurship and creating value and opportunities for others to thrive. In this episode, Scot opens up about his own personal journey and discovery of energy givers and takers. He discusses the importance of prioritizing personal growth and self-care and the impact that leaders' mental health can have in shaping a company's culture. I'm excited to bring you this jam-packed episode full of wisdom and firsthand experiences, featuring my good friend, leader, and visionary, Scot Thomas. Let's climb it. Welcome to Cultured Climates, presented by STC. Company culture is complex, like trying to track down Sasquatch. But we're here to dive into the belly of the beast. Join us for firsthand stories from leaders, along with transformative ideas and insights impacting organizations and people. Ready to climb it? Let the journey begin. All right. Well, welcome back to the Culture Climate Podcast. I am Ryan Brentz, and I'm here with Scot Thomas, who is the president and CEO of STC. And Scot, really pumped to have you back here in the Beat Lab.
Yeah, I love the Beat Lab.
It's awesome.
My dream come true.
Is it? It's amazing. So I wanted to talk to you specifically because our first session, we had John and Daniel and myself in here talking about the genesis of Culture Climate.
How it started.
Yeah, the background, just this idea of the beast that is culture. But I wanted to speak to you specifically about your journey at STC because you're the owner of STC. And throughout the years, you've worn a lot of different hats. So as we sit here today, you're the president and CEO, owner. But can you tell me a little bit about the evolution of all the titles that you've had at STC? Like, what are you?
Yeah. Who am I? Well, just depends, I guess, on the day. But titles are really irrelevant sometimes when you're starting a business. They only make sense when you have to start acting within a role at the company and everyone's getting specific to what they do. And that doesn't happen in the beginning. What happens in the beginning is you have to wear 1,000 hats. And I remember wasting a lot of valuable time trying to create org charts and titles for roles when we couldn't really figure out who is supposed to be doing what. And as we've learned, when everyone's accountable, no one is. And so when you have all your focus going on to what are we going to call each other, that can be a distraction in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that stuff does shore up, but there's a trade-off with it. So when you don't know what to call yourself, then the rest of your team doesn't know how to treat you because they don't know what area of focus that you're in. So I do respect a lot of companies that say, hey, no title. That's cool, but it can be very confusing for the team to understand like what type of role that you're trying to play within the organization.
Yeah.
So when I first started the company, my business card just said consultant, because when I started the business out of my garage, I thought that nobody was going to take serious a 25, 26-year-old with little facial hair, and they're not going to take advice from a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in with a super humble title, like, hey, I'm a safety consultant or I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
And then I carried that for a long time. And in fact, overdue, I didn't want to call myself the owner and the leader of the business because I didn't think that I understood what that role meant. So I went probably way too long before I changed that title, but I've been a consultant. I've been the accountant. I've played every role in the organization. I am very terrible at administrative. Well, I'm good at administrative, but I get angry when I have to do it because I feel like it just eats up all my creativity.
Your energy.
My energy. I mean, I can deliver some good products and I put time in it and I do it as if I love it because I want to do a great job.
Yeah.
but I truly don't. My energy is zapped after that.
Yeah.
And so what I really found my role being is just someone who has to have the energy in the organization to carry it through the things that suck.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that suck in business and a lot of problems that you have to overcome, but things really didn't change for roles until I understood what accountability was in the organization. And then the roles started making more sense.
Yeah. So let's dig a little deeper there. Because it's evolved so much. Obviously the company has grown, it's scaled. And so you talk about accountability. First, you had to be accountable to yourself and to any other leaders that were part of it. And then you started bringing people on board. And so can you speak to a little bit about that as more people started walking through the doors at STC? How did that affect the culture at STC?
Well, culture of one is easy.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everything starts and stops with you.
Yeah.
I remember putting in extensive hours, and I would get energy with the idea. And I didn't start the business with the idea of having a business. I started because out of necessity, number one. So I was working for a place whose culture and values were terrible. And there was a lot of dishonesty in the workplace, a lot of manipulation. And, what I learned at that time when I was working at another company was, what do people that want to win, what do they want? Well, they want to be on a winning team. Nobody that wants to win wants to be on a losing team. And if they do, that's like a sandbag situation where they're just wanting to be clock in, clock out.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
But that never resonated with me. I just always wanted to deliver a great job and bring value. And I think that comes from the deep roots of my childhood and just wanting to become a value. I grew up my whole life not feeling like I could bring value. And so I kind of had this chip on my shoulder that I was going to do whatever it took to bring value.
Yeah.
So when I left that organization, I left because I really wanted to do the type of work we're doing, but I couldn't find anywhere to do it. So I assumed that I would leave and I'd be an independent contractor. So that was my first role, really, was I was an independent contractor.
Got it.
I didn't actually think about hiring anyone at that time. I thought about, hey, this is really great. I could be my own boss. I can get a handful of clients. I didn't think about being a business. And then on day one, I had to open up an accounting software, and then I had to buy all of these tools and equipment. I had to figure out logistics. I had to figure out pretty much everything that the business had. I had to figure out how to just really do every technology, the tools I was using.
Yeah.
I had to go buy a computer that wasn't set up by an IT person. So
you had to professionalize the business.
Yeah, but I didn't know I was doing that.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, well, I need a computer. Oh, I need an accounting software. And then all of a sudden this idea of I'm going to die if I don't get some help, right?
Yeah.
Set in. And that was about 6 months. I think I made it a couple of months, maybe less than 6.
Okay.
Where I was alone.
Wow.
And, on day one, I think I had maybe one client. And then on sometime after that, maybe a couple weeks more, I had a second client. But I don't think I was clearing more than maybe $3,000 a month.
Got it.
In revenue. And then I was spending 10 times that amount on a new computer, CPR mannequins, and other things that I didn't know I needed, but if I wanted to make money, I had to get.
Sure.
So a lot of my early start was a lot of naivety. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I couldn't work for that other company anymore.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had to get out, but I loved what I did.
Yeah.
I loved helping people. And that's
Mm.
what the business, I mean, that's what safety is really all about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't some years later until I figured out that we're not actually in the safety business. We're in the culture business
Yeah.
and the people business.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, when I started, it just wasn't really me being a business owner. I
Yeah.
never had that in mind.
Yeah.
I was just going to take care of myself.
Got it.
Or try to.
Yeah. So kind of something that I've just picked up on from the beginning, and just knowing you too, is just this idea of energy, right? Of having this energy and this desire to want to help people and want to bootstrap it, make something of yourself.
Yes.
That's coming from your personal background.
Mm-hmm.
And then you create this business, which you didn't even know was going to be a business. Mm-hmm. And you realize all these other areas that you needed support. And while you could do a lot of those, there comes a point where like burnout can set in, or you just realize that you're just not going to be able to sustain all of these activities.
Yeah.
So you, at that point, look to bring on some people. And at that time, it's not just you, and you're not just accountable to yourself and your own energy. Now you're dealing with other people, yeah, and their energy and how they're stepping into your environment. Yeah. And so speaking to that, I mean, as we've grown at STC, how have you seen the culture change, and how has that come from other people walking into the doors?
Yeah, I think you really hit on a key point here that many people face. Well, as a 25, 27-year-old, whatever time frame, I had to become a manager. So this is another role, right? So now we have contractor. I start as a contractor, and then I shift into my first job as a manager. I would hardly call myself a business owner at that time because there wasn't a business. It was very early to decide whether or not it was a sustainable business. So then I went into having to be a manager for the first time at a young age. And that was a real fun experience because, you think that you can just tell someone what to do and they're going to do it. So I hired a person that was not from the industry, because when you're a brand new business, your options are limited. The experts in your field it's really hard for them to take a flyer on a 27-year-old startup. If they've got 20 years of safety experience and you're saying, hey, I started a company, we're working out of my garage, would you like to join? It's likely not going to happen. Yeah. So
I had appealing.
Yeah, it didn't sound as appealing as maybe it does today. But when I had to become that manager and I had to hire someone, I had to go outside the industry, someone that was displeased with the work they were doing, and sell my ass off on how this was going to be a better option for them. And I remember I was so excited to have the first employee, and I quickly realized that only one of us could get paid. I tend to make decisions fairly quickly. And so I knew I needed help because psychologically I was running out of gas, yeah, right? And physically. Mm-hmm. So I hired a person, and I really didn't think through all the ramifications. I just knew, and I've had this for as long as I could remember, this survival instinct in me from being homeless as a young teenager briefly to being able to just take care of myself. Yeah. I just bet on myself every time that I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I don't care if I have to go sell oranges on the side of the road to pay this person, or I have to, God forbid, take a loan out or something. Mm-hmm. I'll just do it. And so I just really learned at that time that the managerial side was a role that I wasn't prepared for culturally. And the person came on board. They're a great person, still in the industry today, but I wasn't ready to be a manager. And they had what I needed was a accountability partner at the time, and someone that was capable of delivering at a high level. I didn't need an employee. I needed someone that was highly motivated to deliver the type of quality that I was going to deliver. And they did a good job. Yeah. but they weren't thinking about the future. They were wanting the job portion at the beginning because, I mean, I don't blame them. How would they know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a tough place to be in. Like I can't imagine. I haven't done it, but as I'm thinking, you're having to manage, you're having to sell. That's another role that you had to take on.
Yep.
Was being a salesperson. And then you were kind of over the culture of even just two people. And so, yeah, so obviously we've grown because of your ability to survive. And I've witnessed that firsthand through the years of knowing you, that you are just a gritty, get things done type of person. That's why I've always respected you, is that
Thanks,
you'll find a way. You're innovative, you're creative, and you'll figure out how to keep this train rolling. I guess what I'm getting at is like the people that you're bringing in here. It sounds like you really need to be deliberate about who's coming on board. Like that's such a key portion of knowing yourself, but then knowing how they're going to affect the organization. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I loved Daniel in you guys' first episode. He talks about the clubhouse being strong one side or the other. And here's the thing. I don't believe there are bad employees. Well, there are definitely bad employees, but the people that I have brought through the organization have all been good men and women, good people. We aligned somehow.
Yeah.
I was attracted to them somehow, like with their ability, their charm, their charismatic personalities, their family core values. You name it.
Yeah.
I've never met someone I didn't like. One of the issues that I learned very quickly is you can like someone all you want, and you could even love them, but if they're not able to bring you energy, that can be detrimental when you're just trying to survive. So what happens in survival? Well, if you take it down to the body level, your body starts to eliminate things that aren't vital. Right. And so when you're in survival mode in business, a lot of businesses fail because the leadership doesn't know how to look at something that's bad for the organization. And it could just be a person or their lack of growth mindedness, or maybe they're just the wrong fit and you're trying to make it fit.
Yeah.
And I think when I hired an employee, they thought they were getting a job, and I was needing them to be everything and anything, and that wasn't fair to them in the beginning.
Yeah.
But there's lots of rewards for those that start in small businesses, that start as employee number one. And if they could weather those storms by being able to do what the company needs, not what they want to do, but just be where the company needs you.
Yeah.
And that's where I was really struggling in the beginning, is I just needed people to be where the company needs.
Yeah.
And do things they've never done, but just figure out how to get it done. And so survival for me has been the key.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I didn't have the luxury of having a plan as a kid. And I'm trying to teach my children this now, where they've got all the plans in the world and they get to choose what they want to do. Well, if they're not understanding those life lessons of not having a plan, they're not going to appreciate having a plan either.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm very cognizant about here at the company, is we all still need to be scrappy. We haven't proven anything yet. We've proven one thing, that there is something valuable here.
Yeah.
And now that we are aligned with more people that are growth minded, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I've aligned our company with, is people that are growth minded in nature, willing to do things that are not their role, willing to go above and beyond.
Yes.
Because that's what I've set the bar for that. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Yeah. I'll sit with Connie and chase down $25 that's missing on our accounting spreadsheet, right? Our balance sheet. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because it's what the company needs me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you inherently knew what you were looking for, but you weren't necessarily able to communicate that at the beginning. And so people were coming in and you liked them, or you had a certain respect level as a human being. But when it came to operating at this survival mode at the beginning of the business, you needed someone with, or people with, the humility, but also the growth mindedness of being able to see to the future and understanding that like you, they were going to have to take on many roles.
And fairly, I'd say this.
Yeah.
They also needed me to be a certain thing that I couldn't be.
Yeah.
And so where a lot of my issues came up in early culture was, I think looking back, I would just get very frustrated. I didn't want to be a manager. I didn't want to be a consultant. I wanted to when I decided that this was actually a company and it wasn't me being an independent contractor, I fell in love with operating a business at that time. Because when you invest in something and you have to be the one that holds it all together, you grow in love with it. And so I know that people that buy businesses and they're not in love with the business.
Yeah.
But when they start working in it and hearing the stories and impacting and having success, then I think you grow in love with it.
Yeah.
And so I was growing in love with being, at the time, a business owner. And I would get very frustrated when I was pulled away from being the business owner at that time, at that stage. So I went from employee mindset when I worked at another place into, I think I could be a contractor. I went from contractor to, hey, I'm kind of loving running a business. I love all the components. It's very exciting for me to figure out how to do things. And I kind of learned that I was like a little mini serial entrepreneur in the process, because I would go, okay, I've got the client happy. I've got the accounting working where we're not losing money. Great. Awesome. I want to build presentations so that people can execute the way that I was executing and I was getting praise from the customer. I wanted to replicate that and build a process. So I think fast forward, 12 years later, I had stayed in these roles for a period of time. And what was happening is I was growing in my love for the business and then love for being an entrepreneur that I didn't understand at the time. And I had individuals on the team, they just wanted a job.
Yeah.
And there is nothing wrong with that, except you can't work here, because I don't want to supply a job for anyone. Either this is a career you're going to love and you're going to be passionate about it, because if you don't love it, then I have to be a manager again. And I don't want to be both people do not win when I'm a manager.
Yeah.
Because I'm still the 20, I've grown significantly. I want to be a leader of the organization, not a manager. And I certainly don't want to be a consultant again. I want, for the greater good of everyone, I want to be in leadership of the business. And, a lot of people call themselves entrepreneurs. Are they really just business owners, or are they really just glorified managers? And worse, are they micromanagers? Because when you have people that don't love their work, then you end up being micromanagers.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of companies, as you know, working for STC.
Yeah.
I see a lot of owners and I hear a lot of frustrations. And I think I've come to these realizations because I've listened to the pain that the other owners are having.
Yeah.
I think some of them want to be an entrepreneur and they want to see a company successful without them. And then I see a couple of companies that everything is about them. The owner makes every decision. The owner makes every sale. I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
I want to build a sustainable business that operates without me. And I would be most proud of that, because I know that I'm a terrible manager. I know that I'm not the best consultant because I'm only as good as I can serve the clients numbers wise. So I can only hold a few clients, and that doesn't align with my vision of making big impact.
Yeah.
So if I have to go backwards and do that, I think that's where all my frustration came from in the early days of the business. Was I was growing in love with the concept of entrepreneurialism well before I knew what it was.
Yeah.
I thought starting a business was being an entrepreneur. It is in a way, but the whole idea is, if you're a business owner or a business operator, which may be one and the same or some slight differences, then when you go away, the business goes away.
Mm.
And that to me has always been the goal. I don't want anything reliant upon me because I'm not the smartest guy in the room all the time.
Yeah.
And I know there are people that love their work and love what they do, and they love the energy that it creates them, and they want to hold a portfolio of business, and that's their goal, and they want sustainable work and a safe place. And so I fell in love with wanting to create a safe place. But in that journey, I learned that not everybody on my team aligned with that. They wanted a job.
Yeah.
And when there was always conflicts with that, I always had conflicts with people that just wanted to do enough not to get fired and, just bring just enough. And I didn't always handle it the right way, but it was clearly not going to work culturally. And I think culture, if I could sum it up, is a place we all want to come to.
Yeah.
Including me.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel like coming in, I remember in the first years not wanting to come in. I'd come and pull up in the parking lot, and I would just have to prepare myself. And hopefully my night went well in my personal life before. And I'd have to come in the morning and I'd say, hopefully this isn't going to be a full attack on the rest of my energy. It's like a slot machine.
Yeah.
I was pulling the lever every day I walked in, and that's not good.
That's not the place
culture.
You want to be.
That's bad culture.
No. Yeah. So you talk about this journey, that's one of our core values, is enjoy the journey, because it truly is. And journey, it's not always fun. It's not always roses and dandelions. It's a lot of difficult seasons, but that's part of the growth, mindset, is that even in the midst of these valleys and these struggles, that if you are going to survive, you're going to find a way to see yourself through, to get over the hump. Okay. So from what you just explained, you did go through these seasons of doing some self-awareness, some self-exploration as to what brought you the most energy, while also having to bootstrap the business and keep it alive and running with other people. And in the midst of that, you had struggles, you had conflicts, you had issues with other people. And there was frustration just naturally. So how did you, through the years, how have you learned to adapt to the frustrations that come with other people, and then just trying to find the lessons learned to get over the hump?
Lots of counseling.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
If you're a leader out there, business will break your heart. It will break your heart.
Yeah.
And when you mix business and family, that will break your heart too.
Oh man. Yeah.
And, I've had a lot of these experiences, but you know what? A lot of good growth-minded efforts, a lot of great books that, and I'm a dyslexic guy. I mean, I literally have dyslexia, but I found I am an avid lifelong learner. I love learning, and I love hearing concepts. And when I read a book, I think of application immediately.
Yes.
When I read an author or I listen to someone on social media talking about their experience, I'm thinking of immediate ways to apply the knowledge, and then I dismiss it if it's not applicable.
Yeah.
But how I've dealt with the frustration is removing the things that are not bringing me energy.
Yeah.
And when you're a business owner, your mindset is, how do I make everyone happy? And you will always find that you'll struggle to do that because you can't make anyone happy.
Yeah, it seems like that was a shift though for you.
It was the shift
Yeah.
when I had fallen into a depression a couple of years ago because I had everything that I thought I wanted in a business. It was making money, very profitable, growing organically. Well, I say organically, we've all put in hard work,
Sure.
but it was doing what I thought it should do.
Yeah.
But culturally, I wasn't energized, and several people on the team weren't energized.
And I would venture to say that you were still in the parking lot a little bit apprehensive to come in, or you saw those days. You didn't have the energy to come in.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could.
Yeah,
and I didn't want to build bad culture. For anybody that really knows me, they know that everything I do is about. I'm a very selfless person. In fact, I had to make a big transition of understanding what it meant to put my own mask on first on the hypothetical airplane situation that we all learn, right? If it's going down, you got to put your own mask on. Well, that was never me.
Got it.
I always wanted to bring value, and so I would literally die death by 1,000 paper cuts trying to help others. And what I learned is there are sometimes people that are in your life and in your company that no matter what you do, it's never enough. And that's not because they're bad people. It's because they are lacking either awareness or respect or appreciation or valuing what they have. And if you just look under the hood in their personal life, are they struggling? And then they're bringing that energy into the organization. I think that those are some things. And I had my own problems throughout the business years. And it's like we bring that energy in. And so the big transitions for me were knowing that I couldn't give my whole self at scale and breaking that model, and then realizing that if I'm going to be able to give, I need to be able to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that forced me to evaluate my relationships in life, whom were all great people. Maybe I wasn't the best person that maybe the view of the person they wanted me to be and the person that I wanted to be were completely two different humans. And so I had to make a choice that the view of myself and the way that how I wanted to show up in the world, if it was going to be in opposition with someone's opinion of what they thought I should be, I had to make a pivot to decide what's best. And I can't help anyone if I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And if I don't even have a proper view of myself and I'm letting everyone else dictate that to me, that was also a big critical turning point in the business.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to energy, right? It's like who is bringing you energy, who's draining you energy, and you've just been the type of person that's wanted to give energy, bring value, and you found that there were some people that it was just taking it all. They weren't giving you some back. And that's hard to know off the cuff with people that you're trying to bring on,
Well, especially when you grew up with an adverse childhood and you felt like you weren't enough.
Yeah.
And so you've got this chip on your shoulder that every time something happens in the organization, you blame yourself first.
Yeah.
Really great for some things, but really terrible if you're outnumbered with people that appreciate and value you in the way that, my vulnerability is one of the biggest things that I feel makes this a safe place. I'm willing to say when I'm wrong. Now that was hard because some people really love to exploit that if they're not in the same growth minded, they're going to exploit you being brutally honest.
Yeah.
And that is something that leaders have to understand is when you align yourself with the right vision of who you want to be, and then you get the clubhouse, so to speak, the people on your team leaning more towards taking care of what's best for you in the business, nobody ever, I couldn't think of anyone that I've ever brought in that didn't get 100% of everything I could offer.
Yeah.
I left it all on the mat every day since day one.
Yeah.
Whether they appreciated it or whether they understood my position when I had to make tough calls for the business. I now understand that it's not them and it's not me. It's just not a fit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a seasonal fit. And the difference between a business operator and maybe an entrepreneur is that a business operator is going to focus on everything that's going to keep his world singing kumbaya. He's not going to disrupt the business. And I went through that phase. But then I realized we can't scale the business at that. So as of recent, I started to focus on, all right, if I want to make impact and I want to create and take the company to the next level and use it the way that it's designed to be used. We're such a great running company and we cannot be the best kept secret.
Yeah.
We deserve to scale. In fact, everyone on the team now who's growth minded and willing to take the flyer on where we're going, every year since day one, I've said, if you think we're busy now, we're going to be even busier. And every year that's come true.
Yep.
We have never, ever, ever went the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have, nothing goes up forever.
Yeah.
And then that means you need to reassess and things like that. But I would say I've said it every year, we're going to be this thing. And then some people believed me and some people didn't. Some people didn't believe me by their behavior. They were still they believed they could stay the exact same and that I wouldn't notice. But in a small business, you're exposed. Everyone knows what everyone's doing. You might be able to hide for a little while, but even me.
Yeah.
If I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, people know.
Yeah.
And so I think those are some of the key transitions and things that have really changed. And then I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're saying without emotions, what is the right thing for the success of everyone, the business and everyone. When people are telling you they want to grow and they want to earn more money, but we're not scaling as a business. And I think a lot of teammates need to understand that is at some point, these leaders and these business owners and entrepreneurs, their hands are tied and it becomes a deadlock between the teammates that want to grow and the business owner that wants to grow. And there becomes some discomfort. Hey, how do I get rewarded? And people are a little concerned, like, if I do a good job, am I going to get rewarded? And then the owner is like, I can't reward you until we see a good job. And like, we can't create new roles and responsibilities. So there becomes this deadlock. And I'm really excited to be in that point right now with our organization, to be honest. I love the deadlock. Like the fever is going to break.
Yeah.
And if we have a good, strong culture and we have the right people on the bus and we're all growth minded and we have trust, respect, and loyalty, my job is to retain good talent.
Yeah.
So that means when the results are coming in, I have to do the things that are going to retain good talent.
Yeah.
If I let talent walk out the door to the detriment of the business, that would be on me. But if I let our company finances go out the door in anticipation of results, that can be a very detriment. I mean, we all could have no business. So a business owner isn't really thinking like that. They're thinking, I'm going to make drastic decisions to keep everyone happy because I want to be able to walk in every day and not feel like my energy is sucked. So I'm going to just Band-Aid this thing together. And I've recently made this transition of, no, if it's going to break it now and break it fast. We're going to have a culture that's sustainable and scalable. And in order to do that, I found myself having to move out of the business ownership. Like, so when when we opened up, we talked about president and CEO, the title. Well, I think if you're an entrepreneur-minded person, I think that those roles are exactly that. They're just roles. And I'm moving out of that role as an organization, like from president to CEO or whatever. And I think what's shifting is what role and responsibilities do I have that are for the greater good? And I think a lot of people, if I'm looking at every one of our clients that I've interacted with, are they acting? It's like we hear act your wage, act your age, act your role. Well, a lot of people are not leaving opportunities for people to grow within the organization by, like, my job is to keep moving forward and to get the team to keep filling the roles, like from the early days. This has been a theme in I was the accountant, so I had to have somebody fill that role. Yeah. I was the consultant. I had to have someone fill that role. What happens though is you get, 20 years in there, and then the owner is the lid on the success sometimes. And so they'll stay in the seat of a manager, or even worse, a micromanager. And then they'll wonder why the company's not growing. It's because you're squandering the talent on your team. And they'll leave because they're not challenged, because you're blocking them.
Yeah.
So my job is keep moving forward, move forward.
Well, yeah, it's just evolving and moving along with that evolution, and not just staying stuck in the same role. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point. And as you grow and evolve, you're going to learn a lot about your team. You're going to learn a lot about your culture, and it's not always the best fits. And then yourself. So this isn't just a linear process of this culture just continuing to go upwards. You're going to have little dips. You're going to have tough conversations. You're going to have wrong people that are on the bus that have to get off, and some that get back on. But your ability to be aware of those key moments and those key decisions, it sounds like that's what's been able to help us stay afloat. And you've had to shift your thinking based off all these roles that you've had. So, well, that's great. I really appreciate you giving us insight, not only professionally what that's looked like with the history of STC, but how that's affected you as a human being, and in these different roles.
Yeah. What I want for this podcast is, we don't want to talk all theory.
Yeah.
We want to get down into what has to break in order for scalability in business to take hold. There are business owners and operators and micromanagers that are on the brink of changing roles.
Yeah.
So that the rest of the organization can grow. Those are the things that we want to talk about. We want to create a space where everyone's doing great in business because we all win. Notice we're not talking about safety. We're talking about culture in this podcast, because if you don't have you don't have to worry about safety if you don't have a business.
True.
And I think at the end of the day, if we can help our environment thrive and help each other avoid the pitfalls of standing in our own way, I think we would all win.
Yes.
And we would build great culture, and we would be happy and content in maybe never content, but we'd be heading towards contentment and building something amazing and sustainable and scalable. And it takes a really selfless mindset, which you have to work on. You first have to identify who you are as a person and who you want to be. Then you focus on getting the right people in the clubhouse.
Yep.
And that means making some difficult decisions at various phases. And this never ends. Yep. So if you think you're going to do it once and you're going to be done, it's not going to end.
Yeah.
Because what you're trying to find out is who likes their job and who loves it. Because if you like it, you're probably just looking for a job. If you love it, you're here to scale the business and do what's best for the business every time, because you know that you've selected a good culture. And if you don't know that, then and you're holding back your organization, don't just stay there. Leave.
Yeah.
Because you're hurting everyone, and I'm hurting everyone when I don't love what we do.
Yeah.
And same goes for a small business that's scaling and growing.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. And like you said, that's the point of this podcast is like, let's get to the root of what's worked and what has not worked for business owners. And a lot of times that gold can be in those perceived failures or those valleys, because that's where the lessons are learned. And when we help people make those connections with their own company or their own self, that's a win. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And so I appreciate you sharing your personal story.
It always goes back to the leader.
Yeah.
The leader decides how the business is going to run by the sacrifices that they make. If they're not emotionally intelligent enough to get out of the organization's way and to see when they've overstayed their welcome in a role, responsibility, or they've allowed the organization to stay stagnant. And then they get mad at the individuals that work at it for not being growth minded. I think we all need to look in the mirror with that.
Yeah.
I think every time I've been mad at somebody for not doing something, I've always looked, am I the one in the way first?
Yeah.
And it's been mostly that. Although I don't approve of some of the behavior that some of the past employees have done, I also know my role in it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good word to end our conversation here. But this has been awesome. I'm so thankful to have you in the B Lab, and thankful for you as a leader and for all that you've done for STC through the years. We're just getting started. And it's thanks to conversations like this where we can feel safe with knowing the direction and the mindset of the organization. And we want to help other leaders do the same for theirs.
Amen.
So,
Let's
thanks
get
for coming on board.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
Scott.